I'm afraid I don't know enough about the workings of the OPCW to be able to answer that question, but just to say by way of sort of concluding remarks, I mean, certainly there is a need for the international community to do more. We were just as disappointed as others up here have expressed about the resolution from the Human Rights Council, that the US, that the UK, that many EU member states distance themselves from that. We have called on the US to suspend military aid to Bahrain security units under something called the lei law in the United States. So there are a lot more points of pressure that I believe can be mobilized in the international community, and it's about keeping up attention to what's going on in order to put pressure on governments to move those levers.
To very quickly comment on what Dr. Saeed Shahabi was saying, I don't think we should completely outrule the United States and the United Kingdom. I think that there are people within those systems who genuinely care and genuinely want to see a better situation in Bahrain, and those are the people that we need to reach out to and keep working with. I know this because I've been working with people in Congress in the United States and in the Parliament in the UK who do want to make a difference and who do want to see a better future and a better human rights situation in Bahrain. So I think those are the avenues that we need to continue to push forward in those two countries. But my hope really relies with maybe starting with the Scandinavians, because knowing the situation, for example, with apartheid South Africa, it was the Scandinavian Council that was the first political institution to boycott the apartheid regime in South Africa. Of course, the Scandinavian Council doesn't hold any political power today, but it's the idea that smaller countries, if they come together, they can actually be a very strong force. And Denmark and Sweden both have citizens who have been arrested, severely tortured, and both sentenced to life, serving that life sentence now in Bahrain. So this could be a very important gateway for these two countries to start a coalition of people who really care about the human rights situation, or countries that care about the human rights situation in Bahrain, and could actually implement pressure to stop the human rights violations. Now, as you were talking about, how do we hold who do we hold accountable? As a human rights organization, we don't call for political change. We don't call for a republic or a democracy or constitutional monarchy. That's not our job. We do call for accountability. And part of that accountability is that when Hamad bin Isa al Khalifa in 2002 decided to unilaterally change the constitution and make himself a king and the head of all executive powers in the government, it means that he is also legally responsible for a lot of the violations that have taken place over the last year and a half. And it also means that after the BICI, a report which he fully accepted and acknowledged what was written in the report, that he knows what's going on, because those violations have continued. And so I believe, as a human rights organization, we don't have red lines. We think everyone should be held accountable if they are responsible for crimes, especially crimes against humanity. And it has to be, of course, in a courtroom which completely abides by international standards and fair trial.
طبعا احنا عملنا في كثير من القضايا لها علاقة بالأحداث الأخيرة، ابتداء في القضاء العسكري أثناء السلامة الوطنية، وتعرضنا حالنا حال البقية أيضا إلى مضايقات كمحامين.
We've been working on a lot of cases, he has been working on a lot of cases, especially recently, cases that also have to do, or that took place during the state of national safety, as they called it in Bahrain, which was state security basically, state of security. And they, as lawyers, have been subjected to harassment and targeting because of their work.
طبعا أثناء السلامة الوطنية لم نستطع أن نقدم الكثير للمتهمين، على اعتبار أن ليس بإمكاننا تقديم ما يمكن تقديمه، بالخصوص من أن كان عندنا أطباء معتقلين. حاولنا قدر الإمكان أن نلتقي معهم قبل وأثناء المحاكمة، ولكن للأسف لم نستطع إلا في يوم المحكمة، في يوم الجلسة الأولى للمحاكمة. طبعا على الرغم من أن هناك وكالات موجودة عندنا مسبقة قبل اعتقال هؤلاء الأطباء، مثل الدكتور العكري والدكتور غسان والدكتورة زهرة السماك، ولكن مع الأسف لم نستطع حتى في تلك الفترة الحصول على أي معلومات عنه.
They were also involved very much in the military trials that took place.
كان عندنا وكالات عن الدكتور العكري والدكتورة زهرة.
For example, they were working on different issues, like Dr. Ali al-Akri is a medical doctor, and Dr. Zahra Sammak and Ghassan Daif.
مع ذلك لم نستطع نحصل على أي معلومات.
But despite that, they were unable as lawyers to get information about the cases that they were working on.
طبعا عندما حيلت كل هاي القضايا المحاكم المدنية أيضا نفس العملية، يعني الإجراءات يمكن تكون أخف، ولكن في المحتوى في نهاية الأمر هي نفس الإجراءات اللي كانت يعني مستمرة في المحاكم العسكرية.
Despite having most of these cases now turned over to civil courts, they're finding the same problems and the same obstacles when working in these different cases, as the naming of the court is different, but the procedure and the system that it goes within is pretty much the same.
We have several questions here about the doctors and medics who are serving time in jail now. We've been following their cases closely. We've issued statements and reports in regards to their conditions and legal position now. We've been in contact with the High Commissioner's Office, Human Rights Council, government officials and NGOs. Pressure is applied for their release, but unfortunately we've reached to a dead end here. Their case is over, it's out of the cassation court. And the only way out for them is to get a pardon from the king, or the other option, either to have a change of regime or severe change within the regime. Doctors who are in jail, they're suffering real serious conditions here. One of them who suffered a brain hemorrhage and a stroke before, when he was detained during the national safety period or martial law, released when the case was taken later at military court. After the cassation court, they're back. One of the doctors, he's in desperate need to continue and follow up with his treatment outside Bahrain. The other one, we've got calls from jail that he's been kept with the drug dealers. They're all the time offering him some serious drugs like heroin, hash, and weed, and these things, which doctors can be treated this way. Also, someone asked about reprisals for human rights defenders. Yes, we are. Well, there are always subsequences for our activism. After Geneva, I'll talk about my condition after Geneva. I've been followed. Pictures of my kids were taken and posted in Twitter, and I was threatened to stop. My 9-year-old kid, her pictures was posted in Twitter, and these are not known accounts. Well, some of anonymous accounts talking to people that work for the regime, or they're journalists, or they work for the Ministry of Information. So the case is obvious. I was asked to stop this many times. The recent thing happened to me five days ago when I was visiting Kuwait. There are lists to ban people from entering GCC countries. I was among these lists, and the officer at the immigration informed me that they received a fresh list. Well, I was in a list before a year ago, and talking with some officials, my name was lifted. Again, they keep on sending fresh lists of the activist names, and we get harassed and we get deported from countries, and this keeps on going on and on and on. And we're talking about thousands of Bahrainis who are suffering this. It's not individuals or very few cases or rare cases. There are thousands of these cases. I won't take so long. About the CS gas, my colleague here from Bravo, she's been following closely the CS gas case, Tara. If she can comment on that, I think it's very important we have a detailed information about it.
I think I will start with questioning even why we are here, why we are in Bahrain, and why we go to UK, US, and everywhere. Definitely it's not to cry and scream. We go everywhere to find solution for our loved country, and the solution for everyone in the country. You need to look into Bahrain as either part or integral part of the international community, or it's undermined by the international community. from both perspectives, from official perspective and from people perspective. If you want Bahrain to be part of the international community and maintain that to be part of the international community, then there are a set of obligations to the officials to maintain it to be part of this international community. And for the people of Bahrain to be recognized as part of the international community, there are a set of obligations from the international community towards these people. And when we talk about what can the international community do for us, there are obligations, duties for the international community, as well as interest. And no one deny that international community, most of them, they work for their national interest rather than people interest. Who said that the stability in Bahrain is not in the international, in the national interest of the main powers? And this is part of their duty to maintain, even look at it from a selfish perspective, to maintain their national interest in the region and overall. So we're talking about, in this perspective, there are a set of international obligations and duties, and to maintain the interest of these bodies. From this, we look into the holistic picture, the big picture. The core problem in Bahrain is that we don't have a system which allows certain people to abuse the absence of the system for their advantage of no accountability for corruption. And we know that 80% of our lands being confiscated, for corruption within the practices of the government and other things, no accountability for human rights abusers, and no accountability for development. Now you cannot hold accountable the Prime Minister why we have 50,000 backlog of housing, why we are not meeting the Millennium Development Goals, why we are not doing this, why we haven't got diversification to our economy, etc., etc. Because there is no accountability. And this is the absence of the system. To solve the problem, not to be pessimistic, the people were determined, persistent, and this is why the people are continue to be in the street, to pressurize and do their duties, and to notify the others, the international community, about their duties. We don't want Americans or UK or Europeans to come with airstrike to Bahrain. We want them to take their political and diplomatic means to maintain their national interest and the international obligation, and things will happen in Bahrain. And I think with this, optimistic that we have very good calibers and candidates in Bahrain. The people, the activists, and they are well aware how to reach out to the international community to make them on their obligations and duties. I think we can have a success story in Bahrain. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalil. One last comment on my part, if I may. I haven't really made any comments much. I think the extraordinary success of the establishment of the International Criminal Court by the international community and the effective functioning of it, which really didn't take me by surprise. I thought it took too long, but everybody says it was very quick. Between 1998, when the court was established, 2002 when it came into force, and today when it's actually functioning with cases concluded and so on, demonstrates that there is not one country or two countries or three countries that determine which way the world goes, but it is something that is done collectively. And to the extent that I can offer any advice to everybody, don't restrict yourself into who you're talking to. There is goodwill in the international community. There is interest in the issue of human rights and Bahrain. In particular, I think everybody recognizes that it is simply an unacceptable continuing situation. So I hope that you will have an opportunity as Bahrainis here to interact with 121 state delegates that are here. And that's my good luck wish for all of you. Thank you for everybody who joined us. This is Nicola Figattalamanca from No Peace Without Justice.